folks, welcome back to my listing of the best games from the past 40 years. 40 years of great games. And last time I was a little like, those years weren't so great. But today we're talking about 1991 and 1992. Now the years are not yet fantastic enough to be able to put 10 games per year. We'll start that in 95. But this was the beginning of a major shift in the gaming industry. From 1991 to 1995, there was so many massive overhauls. We started seeing amazing games being produced. Germany became a powerhouse of gaming. At this point in time, we were still calling them German games. It eventually morphed into Euro games as time went by. They started invading America in the mid-90s. But there was a lot of fantastic games that came out during this period. So let's get started talking about them. Number 10. I mentioned his name last time, Rainer Knizia. This won't be the last time. Dr. Knizia has made hundreds of games. Number 10, Modern Art. Modern Art is an auction game in which do you want to go once around a table? Do you want to have open bidding? Do you want to have closed bidding? All kinds of auctioning in this game for paintings. It is auction, 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 auction. And it was just mind-blowing at this point in time because we had seen auctions before, but never quite so into a good game like this one. Now, Modern Art, in my opinion, has been eclipsed as the years have gone by, but this was still a fantastic game to come out during this time frame. Number 9 is Tichu. Last time I talked about Gang of Four, a ladder climbing game, a game where you're trying to get rid of all the cards in your hand. Tichu is the king of these games. In fact, it came out in 91. Here we are, 25 years later, and Tichu is still being played by a very hardcore group of fans. They love it. I still go to conventions and they're playing it for hours and hours on end. I don't think it's that great, but they obviously do, and it certainly has its staying power. And just where you work with a partner, again, bidding. The bidding is a big part of the game, and then trying to get rid of those cards. Number 8 is a light card game about pirates called Loot. And there's been many different names of this, and many different companies have published Loot. But essentially, Loot, you're playing cards in front of you that are going to be your loot that you'll get, and hopefully they'll still be there by the time it comes back around to you on your turn. And it works well with large groups of players. It's very light and easy to get into, and some of the versions, like the Game Right one, have fun, cute artwork. Number 7 is Speculation, which is a stock market game, and Queen just brought this back a couple years ago as a reprint. Speculation, though, very simple. Buy, sell stocks. There's not many games that are simple stock market games. Acquire is one of them. Speculation would be another one, but this one is almost a party stock market game, if I could say that. It's easy to get into. It's one of the easiest ones, and a lot of cool, fun factors to it. 6 is a favorite of mine, Picture Picture, and in fact, I believe Asmodee has announced the game, I forget the name of it, that's very similar to Picture Picture. Picture Picture, you had a whole pile, a picture with a million things on it, and you just looked at the picture and wrote down what you saw for each letter of the alphabet, and then it was like categories where each person would say, oh, you have the same thing I wrote for A, we cross them off, but if I wrote something no one else had, I get points. Lots of fun. The pictures were amazing. So many things. They would show a picture of a candy store, a picture of a toy room, lots of great things. This is a game that you can probably find at a flea market. Definitely worth your while. Number 5 is Looping Louie. Yes, that kid's game where you hit the guy and he goes up and knocks down the chickens. And they made a goofing Looping Louie. This past year they made Looping Chewy. Hilarious stuff, but a lot of fun, a lot of entertaining times. It's certainly a hit for kids, but for adults also. And like I said, another game that's still being sold over 20 years later. That's very impressive. You can laugh at it, you can say it's silly, but the concept works well as you watch that guy do all those crazy airplane tricks and knock the other people's chickens off. Number 4 is Quarto. Abstract strategy games are often very complex, but the best ones are always just a few rules, and Quarto followed those rules as you try to get things in a row of 4 of the same size or the same shape and so on. And there's really beautiful wooden versions of this game out there. I highly recommend it, Quarto. Number 3. One of the definitive racing games to come out is Formula D, or Formula Day at the time. They changed the name years later to Formula D, but it's essentially the same game. What this game did was it took those amazing polyhedral dice that Dungeons & Dragons, I believe, up to that point, was one of the only games to use them, and it brought them into a racing game. You want to go in 6th gear, you're rolling a 30-sided die. You go in 1st gear, you're rolling a 4-sided die. For most people, that was like, what are these dice? I've never seen shapes other than the cube. Wow, that was just an amazingly cool concept. I mean, we had seen some of these dice used in in different games, but this was one I thought that brought this to the masses, and it was a fun racing game. It was easy, it was simple, you move around, you had to stop in curves. They made many tracks for it. That's Formula Day. Number 2, some people might disagree with this one being so high on the list, but this is my list, and that is Clue the Museum Caper. Clue is a game that, whatever for me. Clue the Museum Caper was a lot of fun. It was this big board, and one player was a hidden person who was moving around the board stealing paintings. The other players were people trying to catch him. They were using cameras on the board. They were using motion sensors. They were moving around just trying to look for him, and he was moving on a map. It was kind of like Scotland Yard, but it was a really entertaining game. I played this game probably 50 times or so. Just a lot of fun. It's a little lucky maybe, and some of those things are outdated. Spectre Ops, very big smash hit, has a lot of similarities to it, but an excellent game for this time, Clue the Museum Caper. And my favorite game from 1991 and 1992 is Confusion, Espionage, and Deception in the Cold War. I never played it in those years. Stronghold Games released it a few years ago. This is an excellent 2-player game where you can't see your own pieces. Your opponent sees them. So you say, I'm going to move this piece, and your opponent says, you can't do that. Okay, and so you're slowly saying, the piece here that I have, and you have this chart, you're marking off, this piece can't move that way, this piece, and eventually, that's what that piece is, and you're trying to go capture your opponent's spy. A lot of fun, very cool idea. I haven't seen it used in any other game. A great deduction game for 2 players. That's Confusion, Espionage, and Deception in the Cold War. So those are my top 10 games for 1991 to 1992. Things only get better from here on out. 40 years of great games. They're getting greater. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.